All right, well, welcome everybody. I'm Shari Santoriello. I'm leadership and career coach here at ALV, and we are going to talk about um, how to create impact at work without using people pleasing tendencies. Just want to let you know that today I'm running all my stuff. Normally we have people helping, but everybody's so busy. I'm doing it myself. So bear with me. I may have a little stop start when I let people into the room or I have to get a link to drop you, but I'm with you here the whole time. Um, so let me talk to you a little bit about what ALV is so that you're familiar with what we do here. ALV is a coaching company which is all about loving your life, which is what exactly our name means. Our name means love your life. And for us, it's really important that our clients align with what their values and their passions are and what their career looks like. We coach across career, leadership, life, and health and wellness because success and loving your life looks different for everybody. So that's one of the reasons why we coach across all different types of spaces. Um, my name is Shari Santoriello. I said that I'm a career and leadership coach here at Vida, which means I coach in those verticals. And sometimes I sort of wiggle my way into life coaching because it helps support all the other things that I'm doing as well. Um, Feel free, my style when we talk about things is feel free to come off your microphone at any time and come off mute, speak, show your face, let me know what's going on. Happy to take the interruptions and see what we've got going on for you, because that's really what this is all about is um, what are we here for you to get the information that you know. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. Like I said, working solo today, so give me a minute to get to everything. Would love for you to start dropping in the chat your names and where you're from. I saw some people come in before, and this also helps for networking to see, hey, do you know someone who's in your area? Because you can talk to each other in the chat. Today's agenda is we're going to talk about what is people pleasing, because straight out, it's hard to know if you're doing it if you don't know what it is. How to create your me list, which is creating a priority list so you know how you want to make that impact, how to prioritize it, how you build your support and your solution so that you can create this impact and not use those people pleasing tendencies and those activities and that behavior. And then lastly, how do we talk about the communication of those things? So, first and foremost, what is people pleasing? Anybody want to drop in the chat what they think people pleasing is or what they recognize it to be? Primarily, oh, let me just get this person in. Primarily, people pleasing is any kind of activity when you're putting somebody's needs above your own. Just straight up when you're taking somebody else that somebody's doing and making it more important than your own. I'm seeing in the chat we have people overly serving others before yourself. 100%. That's putting someone's needs above your own, putting aside your own priorities to address someone else's stuff. Exactly. That's probably the number one piece of people pleasing that we understand for each other. Along with that is also avoiding confrontation. And one of the reasons we avoid confrontation when we're people pleasing is we want everyone to like us. So that's part of putting everyone else's needs above our own, is that we want everyone to like us. So that's why we avoid confrontation, because we think people will see us as a yes person, a support system. They're always willing to do. And that's what leads us to do any kind of behavior that will give us this result. So first and foremost, putting someone else's needs above your own, and then wanting everyone to like you, being a yes person, having perfection. What's the result of doing this? When you're doing people pleasing activities, at What is the result when you participate in these activities? Um, Someone already just put in the chat burnout, exhaustion, everyone's resentment, feeling overwhelmed. Yeah, you're getting them all in there. When you neglect your own needs, it's resentment, it's exhaustion. Someone just said, I lose sight of myself and my identity. Absolutely, because you're neglecting your own goals, your own happiness, your own value, and your own level of fulfillment. And that's part of what we want to talk about today in terms of being able to create impact at work. This also will work personally, but we're primarily concentrating on within developing your career, how to do this in the workplace or how to do this professionally. When we coach one-on-one, some of you may be clients who are already, we will do a lot of work to gather, recognize skills and recognize growth opportunities to help these things move forward. And that's what we're talking about today. Um, Listen, at the end of the day, the result of people pleasing is all of the things that you just put in the chat. And all that also leads to, and I think I saw someone put it in the chat, is resentment. And when we're feeling resentful, we don't then want to do the work. So this becomes a very vicious cycle for us where we do all these things because we're looking for a result, and then that result doesn't happen because we're now burnt out and resentful and lose sight of our identity because we've put someone else's needs above our own. We also then have no boundaries. That's problematic, especially at work, because it's your career, it's your role at work, but we are whole people. And my guess is many of us on the call have something that happens outside of work. And if we don't set boundaries, then people feel that they can do and say whatever they want whenever they want, which then again leads into this cycle. Um, so so that's the result of people pleasing, which is why we want to try to decrease the level of the use of it in the workplace. Also, not helping your career development. People pleasing is only going to take you so far because you're in this cycle of doing people pleasing activity, getting resentful, being burnt out, being stressed, losing your identity. So then you stop people pleasing activity, which usually has its own results so that you go back to people pleasing activity. And this goes around in a circle. You're not moving your career forward during that time. You're not creating impact in your workplace. You're simply hamster wheeling. And that's something that we want to try to stay away from. So, how do we do this? One of the easiest ways to do this is to create what I call the me list. Pardon me. The me list is a list that you can use in a couple of different ways. This is an example of how I usually set it up because I'm simple. Um, how the me list can be used is it gives you an opportunity to start brain dumping, thinking about what is important to you. So that's what the first column is, right? All of your unfiltered wants. You could use this if you were looking in your career development path to get a promotion. Today, we're using it in terms of how do I want to create an impact in my workplace? So that's what that first column is going to be, right? What are the things that I want to create an impact in? Um, I want to be lead on a certain initiative. I want to have a seat at the table. I want to make more money. I want to be considered a thought leader in this space. Whatever those things are, is what you would put right here in this first column, which is your unfiltered wants. My example is always I want to work for a manager with blue hair because it makes me happy to work for a manager with blue hair. Second column is what's your level of negotiability for this thing, whatever this thing is. In our case, we're going to go with I want to run this initiative, whatever this initiative is. So, what's your level of negotiability for this? Is there anything in this space that feels acceptable to you other than running this initiative? That would be non negotiable, somewhat negotiable, negotiable, very negotiable. And that will help you prioritize what are the important things that you want to have an impact in. When you work with a coach one-on-one, this provides a roadmap for coaching. So if you come to ALV to work with a coach, um, to have career development, work past where you are, this is an exercise that most of us do with our clients to get a sense of, okay, where are you at? What's movable for you? And what's the priority? What's the main driver for you in this space? So for you, having an impact at work might even be as simple as, I don't want to be a people pleaser anymore. And it's not negotiable for me. And notes are always a third column. Anyone who's on this call who's worked with me before knows nothing's absolute. So we always have notes, right? Because in my case, I'll work for a manager with blue hair. That's totally not negotiable. But in the notes, I'm saying green and purple hair are okay. Okay, so what that tells you is yellow hair is not okay. Purple hair is okay. Red hair, not okay. So what am I willing to move on? So that's where the me list comes in handy. Once it's filled out, and it can be some things in there that are um, that contradict each other. That may happen for you. That would not be unusual. Once you have that list, I'm going to go back for 1 second to it. Once you have this list, and it'll be long, if you sort by what's non-negotiable for you, you're going to come up with your list of priorities. It's important for you to prioritize because this goes right back into that core of people pleasing, which is putting everybody else's needs above our own. So when we prioritize, we're now saying, I'm not putting these three things above Pat, above Sam, above this person's needs in the office. That's not happening because these are my things. This is where it gets like a little finicky because this is what's in direct contradiction to our people pleasing behavior. We may have something on this list that doesn't align with our people pleasing behavior. This is where we have to start to make some decisions about how important is this? Do I want the things that are at the top of my list, or would I rather stay in the position that I'm in? Thinking back to the result of this behavior, which a lot of you threw in the chat, right? Same thing, burnout, stress, exhaustion, resentment, loss of identity. That does not move you forward. That does not create impact for you. So once you have your group of things that you've prioritized, and you don't want to have 10 things, that becomes very difficult to do, right? You're very rarely are we going to be in a position where we're going to be able to create impact across 15 things in the workplace. You want to pick your top 3 to 5. And honestly, you start at that first thing, that what's that most important driver. In order to determine what that is, you need to come up with support and solutions for yourself. And this is where we start to change our behavior a little bit. This is where we start to figure out, what is my new behavior going to be? How am I going to get to having this impact and start to leave the people pleasing behavior behind? A couple of things that are super important to do. I'm going to start in the middle of this list, which is this support system, internal and external. An internal support system is building a network within your workspace. It could be mentors, it can be coworkers, it can be anybody who's in within your workspace who sees you for who you are rather than the people pleaser, understands the impact that you want to make, and can help you emotional support, physical support, workplace support. Maybe they know somebody else to talk to who can help you attain whatever your non-negotiable is, where the place is that you want to have an impact. External network is family, friends, people in trade organizations, other people in the industry who don't necessarily work at your place. And again, same reason, this provides emotional support, provides support within your space as well, who can help boost you, people you could practice your communication with, people who can reaffirm what you're looking for looks like a realistic possibility in your workplace. This is probably the biggest piece for you to start to let go of those people pleasing tendencies. The person that you likely don't want in this support system for you is the person where you are tending to do the most people pleasing for. And the reason is that's going to provide the same result that the people pleasing does. Because this person isn't putting your needs in their priority standing. Because that, again, back to the core of what people pleasing is, which is putting someone else's needs above your own. Hi, Rachel. I'm going to get to it in 1 second. Rachel just asked what's a brag book, but I'm going to take you through that. I'm talking about support systems, and the reason why I jumped the list is because this one's the most important. You want to really avoid having the person to which you people please in this support system. They tend to be not supportive and not helpful to you, and it does tend to take you back into those same behaviors that we're people pleasing for. Other things that are important to start to set up for yourself is, and Rachel, start with, what is a brag book? It's exactly what it sounds like. You want to start to put together a book of your brags. This is your celebrate your wins. This is a customer sent you an email telling you how helpful you are. Forward it to a space where you keep it. A coworker said, "Oh my God, that was such a great idea. I've started using it. It's fantastic. Save it for your brag book." You exceeded benchmark in your review, or you got an amazing review, put it in a separate place. People call them brag books, rainy day files, any place where you can collect your wins. What's important about this is it's got a couple of different things that we'll use it for. One, it helps you celebrate your wins straight up. You can look back and see, hey, here's what I've done. That helps build confidence. Whenever you want to make an impact at work and it's going to involve some level of communication, the more confident you are with what you're going in with, the more successful you are when you're communicating that out. Also works in terms of when you're in a position where you have to now maybe write a justification of why you want to have a seat at the table, or what you bring to the table that has value or is going to add contribution or an impact to this particular thing. You don't have to be struggling to look for it, and you might forget things. You just go to your brag book and you have it. Also a helpful career transition tool if you're looking to work outside of your space. So bonus tip, if you're a career transitioner, keeping a brag book helps you when you have to update your resume, update your LinkedIn, start to do networking. So brag book is a good thing to always keep for yourself as well. Documentation, not dissimilar to a brag book, but slightly more rounded in that the brag book is about you, always about you. Documentation is keeping a very clear record of what's going on. So we're going to stick with our example. If you want to be in charge of this particular initiative, whatever this initiative is, and you see what's gone with it that you feel are roadblocks or you see as opportunities for growth within this, which is why you want to have the impact in this particular space, document what you've seen. Again, it lends credibility if it's in documentation. There's time logs, there's statements of what's gone on, much easier to utilize it when you have it documented, whether when you're looking off the top of your head. This also helps you to have that strong foundation. Research, for the same reasons. You always want to be as prepared as you can be when you're trying to have whatever this impact is. Over time, now we've picked something static by saying, I want to run this initiative. But when you want to have an impact at work, it might not be something as specific as I want to run an initiative. It may be, I want to be seen as a subject matter expert. I just want to have my own place in my workplace rather than constantly being seen as so-and-so's yes person. That's where the research comes in, because what that does is that makes you an expert in whatever this thing is. So when I'm working with my clients, a lot of the times I'll say to them, how are you keeping current? And if you're in a specific industry, what are you doing to keep your thumb, your finger on the pulse of what's happening in that space, because that's important. And that's what also helps you to know that you are or aren't an expert in this space. Again, the more you get reinforcement, positive reinforcements from these behaviors, one, you're starting to build your own space out, you're starting to create that own impact, but the people pleasing behaviors tend to decrease as you're doing this. Um, and again, when we're working one-on-one, this is an area that coaches work with you on all the time, is building confidence up in one area and utilizing different skills so that the skills that you don't want to use so much will start to decrease. Then finally, we come to solutions. Solutions are, there's no secret here. It's exactly what the word means. How do I do this? I want a seat at the table. What are the steps that I can take to get there? I want to be seen as a thought leader. Okay, what do I have to do to get there? I want to run this initiative. Okay, what do I have to do to get there? One of the first things that you're going to have to do is communicate this to people. What does that look like? People pleasers tend, not across the board, but tend to not communicate very clearly. One of the reasons is that if we communicate our needs clearly, then we're putting our needs above somebody else's. That takes us out of people pleasing behavior. This is one of the first steps to decrease people pleasing and increase almost anything else that you're doing, is communicate clean, succinctly, and clearly with what you want. That is super easy to say, not as easy to do, and I understand that. One of the biggest things that people pleasers do is use the phrase, I'm sorry, almost all the time. Those of us who people please tend to use it as the beginning of almost any sentence. I'm sorry, could I? I'm sorry, well, I was thinking about. Take I'm sorry out of your vocabulary as a people pleaser, as in anybody really. Change the thank you. Just insert thank you where you would normally say I'm sorry. It makes you feel better because you're not apologizing for something you didn't do most of the time. You did something, you want to own it, feel free to say I'm sorry. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the fact that that you feel the need to start every sentence with I'm sorry because it's not fitting that person's agenda. You want to make sure that they know that you're acknowledging that this doesn't fit their needs. That makes us smaller. And a lot of times when we even say I'm sorry, we'll bring our body in. Nonverbal communication is huge. It's where almost all the meaning is in what we're saying. So even think about what you do with your body when you say, I'm sorry. You bring your shoulders in, you get yourself smaller. Sometimes you put your head down. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm sorry, I just wanted to say. Well, you know what? Pick your head up, pick your chin up, put your shoulders back and say, hey, thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for letting me have the floor. Thank you for letting me participate in this. So there's a big piece in how you're being perceived just by changing that one little thing in how you communicate. This says, I know what I want. I have my priorities in order. I'm prepared to have this conversation with you. I don't have to apologize for something that I didn't do because it doesn't meet your need right this moment. All that. I can imagine everybody sitting on the other side of this call going, really, all of that? Just picking up my shoulders? Yep, all of that and picking up your shoulders and not saying I'm sorry. It's one of the most powerful things you can do when you communicate across the board. Not even for people pleasing, but big for people who people please. A mouthful. But for sure, across the board, it just changes that communication level straight up. Um, I see something coming in the chat. And yeah, direct communication shows that you respect yourself and who you're talking to. Yes. Yes. 100%. There's no two ways around that. Second thing that helps with this direct communication is prepare and deliver simple. See how I made it capitalized so you would know it's important. Um, Simple messages. Another challenge that we face when we communicate in not being clear is we overcomplicate the message. And that's from our people pleasing piece. We think if we muddy the message, that it doesn't sound like we're actually asking for something. And again, when I say ask for something, I'm not particularly referring to a singular thing. It's anything in the workplace where you want to have a voice or where you want to create this impact for yourself. If you're delivering very cloudy, muddy messaging, people don't know what you want. And that's likely why you might not be getting the response that you're looking for. And it's okay to prepare ahead of time. And some people think, well, I'm going to sound rehearsed. No, but you might be more comfortable with the words. And the more comfortable you are, that brings confidence. The more confidence, the better the communication. Which brings me to my next bullet, which is practice out loud. And yes, practice out loud. And yes, I still practice out loud before I need to do things. I want to make sure I'm saying the words correctly. I want to make sure the cadence is what I want it to say. I want to know when I have to take a breath. I want to make sure it sounds like that the words I'm saying, how it sounds is the meaning that I want to portray. So it's okay to practice. Yes, even at this level. Yes, even if it's for something simple. Over time, it becomes easier that you don't have to practice every little thing because you'll start to flex that muscle and it'll be muscle memory that you'll prepare simpler messages and deliver them differently. But yes, at the beginning, practice out loud. I, I teach the college level also, and I say this to my students, and they're always laughing at me because I write it on the board in these gigantic letters. Yeah, practice. Yes, I still use a board. Practice out loud. We have a bazillion technological tools to utilize in this space right now for ourselves. Open up your Zoom, record on your phone, talk to the mirror, do anything that helps you start to see yourself as valuable and as asking for what you need. Make yourself the priority, not everybody else's needs. Little trick on that is using organizational language. I'm using that term organizational language as opposed to using lingo, using buzzwords. Sometimes too many buzzwords, too much lingo confuses that message. And because I'm saying we want you to be simple with that message, again, decreases the people pleasing behavior. You do still want to use the language that your organization uses. And that's different in across organizations. What we use here at ALV, somebody else may never use in their organization. Right? A lot of companies have a lot of alphabet soup. So use the alphabet soup or use the sayings, use the language that they tend to use when you're delivering your message. Again, shows that you understand where the space is that you're in. You've kept current, you understand whatever it is you're asking for, right? The product, the service, the item, the initiative, the seat at the table, whatever it is, you're showing that you understand that space by using that language. If you are asking for something specific, hey, I want to run this initiative, hey, I want to attend this meeting, hey, I want to be considered for this, hey, I want to do that. Summarize what you've asked for, even though you've asked for it simply, with what that final ask is. Make sure you leave the people that you're talking to understanding what you're doing. In sales and marketing, we call it the close or the call to action. We'll have one in this seminar today. I'll tell you when it's coming so you know how to make sense. You want to always summarize what that ask is. Again, when you're coaching one-on-one with a coach, this is something that we work with you to do to practice. Hey, what is that call to action? What is it that I really want? Hence why we go through the me list and we prioritize. Lastly, follow up. One of the biggest tools that we tend to forget to use when we are trying to create an impact is the follow up. As people pleasers, if we can finally get out a simple statement and ask for something, we make the assumption or the jump, well, we asked, they heard me, they'll get back to me. Nope, you have to follow up. This is where it's your job to now come back and say, hey, remember when we talked about so and so thing? Where are we with that? What's the status? Because I'd really like to be included. Reiterate your enthusiasm, reiterate your interest in, but it takes follow up. Again, shows that you're still interested, shows that you did your research, shows that you understand. Because otherwise, a lot of times, not always, you may have a great senior lead. You may have someone who responds or who's particularly tuned in. But if you tend to be a people pleaser and are putting people's needs above your own, that's something you've probably conditioned the people that you work with about. That goes into that boundary setting thing. Therefore, in their minds, a follow up isn't needed on their part because your needs aren't as important. So that's where it's really important for you to follow up. Again, practice your follow up. It it's hard. All of these things look so easy when they're put on a deck, right? And someone reads it to you, or we talk about it, and you're like, oh yeah, so easy, just go do it. Understanding it isn't. I am not pretending that it is. It's hard. It pushes you into outside of your comfort zone. That's where a coach provides a tremendous amount of support for you in terms of what can you do? What can you do to help move these things? Where are the roadblocks? How do we break them down? How do we determine where the opportunity for growth is and what that can look and feel like, and how do you execute it? And a lot of this takes practice. I would love for you to start throwing in the chat right now, thinking about what you can do for a first step. What's something that you're willing to do or commit to today? I know for me, I'm a recovered people pleaser. For me, one of the first things I did, Victoria M, is saying no to people. Awesome. And just so you know, no is a complete sentence in and of itself. It doesn't have to be no and then a justification. No is okay. What might happen with no is people might wait for that justification because they're accustomed to you giving it, but you don't have to give anything. You can say no and sit with that silence for a minute and let them take that under advisement, I guess. Let them sit with it for a minute. For me, biggest change I made was taking I'm sorry out and putting thank you in. It's a small change that I was able to make that didn't feel overwhelming to me to start. We have some people who are going to start to work on their me list to get clear with their own priorities. It's a huge exercise, and it's okay that you don't do it all at once. Do it, come back, do it a little, come back to it. And again, it's okay if things on there are contradictory because you're using it to sort and to figure out what those priorities are. Somebody else saying I can follow up on what is or was asked of me and what I have asked of others. So person who wrote this, I would love for you to reframe this sentence to I can follow up on what I have asked of others first. So I can already see some people pleasing tendency in how you even wrote that sentence. I can follow up on what was asked of me first. So again, always putting what someone's asked of you ahead of what you want. Let's reverse that sentence. I'm not saying you shouldn't follow up on what has been asked of you as well. That's just being a collaborative coworker. That's being a good person to work with, a good coworker. But when you're following up, start with what you've asked of others first. And then the other thing can come second. That way you're prioritizing your need in that space. Stop reflexively offering to help. So hard. So hard to stop raising your hand. And for those of us who are in the want to raise your hand first group, I can tell you that I've learned a lot from my co-coaches here because we work a lot together in some team spaces to learn from each other. I'm always a hand raiser because I think it's always important. And I've learned how to take a breath. And sometimes that's all it takes is that breath is, can I do this? And a little phrase that we use all the time in coaching and a lot of leaders also use this when they're working with managing their team is yes and or yes if we're someone who's constantly saying yes, put that disclaimer on it. Yes, if we can move it 2 weeks from now, because that'll be better for my schedule. Yes, happy to do that. And can I work with Sam on this so we could split the work? So yes is okay to say. It doesn't always make you a people pleaser. It's what comes after that. If you're saying yes without checking your schedule, if you're saying yes knowing it's going to overwhelm you, if you're saying yes and you don't have a clue, those are spaces where you might want to start to employ yes and, yes if. And then afterwards, if the and the if aren't being accommodated, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. Do I have any questions before I keep going? I will not go to those people who I people please the most for support and go to my support who sees me as I am and not a people pleaser, Victoria. That's awesome. Again, letting all of you know that all of these things are huge steps for you. When you do them, make sure you celebrate the fact that you've done it. Because we don't get places by just taking huge leaps. It's all of these little steps that make a success and make a completion to whatever that goal looks like for you. So make sure that you're celebrating if you do this, right? If you say no to something, yeah, I did. I said no. I struggle with people pleasing with clients more than coworkers. How do you walk the line between being helpful and being people pleasing with clients? I'm a social worker. Thank you for that question. That's a great question and super hard in your line of work, right? Part of your job is to be helpful and to be a good listener and to provide that safe space for your client. The difference is, and this is how I see it, so I'm letting you know that this is an opinion in my case here, is doing two things. One, first of all, setting what the expectation is of your job. I know as a career coach, people will come and I have to set what their expectation is. So in the case of this conversation, I would set an expectation that I'm here to help support and guide you to decrease people pleasing activities so that you can create impact for your client or you can create impact for your clients here. But I don't have a magic wand and everything we're going to go over isn't going to work in each case. So we're going to have to work together to find what's most comfortable for you. So straight up, I always like to set expectations of what that looks like. And then part two is what we talked about earlier, which is setting boundaries. There are some things that just aren't going to be appropriate in the social worker client relationship. And that's going to be straight up what's helping determine if you're stepping over that line for yourself. You know, am I now people pleasing and giving them what they want, or am I best serving my client? And that's super difficult. So this is a space where you actually can sometimes practice some of the language that you use. Um, Rachel, this is a space where you could practice some of that and find like a little narrative that works for you. And even create some key words for yourself of, oop, these are my trigger words. I now know I'm people pleasing with a client rather than helping them. And anything that hits that space, you can then talk to. Um, and give some great advice there, Rachel, too, as well. Just got out of direct service. What helped was recognizing that solving someone else's problem denies them the opportunity to solve it for themselves. Not dissimilar to what we do in coaching. Any questions before I move to my next slide? Because I'm going to move into my call to action and my ask. So I want to make sure that I'm answering everyone's questions before I do that. I'm not seeing anything come in the chat. And I'm not hearing anyone come off. So to that end, we were talking before about what does a summary look like, right? How do you wrap up and what your ask is? This is how it works, is how do you take this further? Right, you just sat with me for 40 minutes talking about people pleasing activities, how they're affecting you in the workplace, and some ways that we can decrease those and find a way to have um, an impact that makes sense to us. Someone asked, can I get a copy of the video? Yes, the replay will be sent out to everybody tomorrow, just so you know. So how can we take this further? What's the thing that's going to help you become less of a people pleaser, more of an impact worker for yourself? Well, you could work with a coach here at ALV. We are here to help you. You can work with a coach one-on-one for 45-minute session. And our coaches are all perfectly matched to who is going to work best with you. So what you would do is you are going to call in for a primer with our relationship strategist team, and they're going to talk to you, and they're going to figure out who you're going to work best with on our staff and on our with our coaches, and they're going to place you with that person, and that coach is going to be able to provide for you lots of different insights, things that you might not be able to see that you're talking about, and things that you might see, that support, which is important, and a lot of accountability so that you can reach what these goals are, right? And for our case today, we're talking about decreasing people pleasing behaviors and replacing it with forward motion, reframed activities that give you the opportunity to have that impact in the workplace that you're wanting to have. Um, Whenever you become a member here at ALV, there's bonuses. Who doesn't love a bonus, right? These bonuses are worth over $1,000 for you. First thing you get is an all access pass to our ALV Connect Slack channel for ongoing support. What that is we have a private channel for all of our members. You go in there, you can meet with other members. We have sub channels in there about things that might be specific to you. This is where you can network. This is a safe place to get some resources. Heck, we even have a channel for your pets, right? If that's important to you and you want to show off your pets, go in there. It's just a safe place to be with people who are in similar positions to you. Celebrity sessions with our full coaching team. As a coach, I will tell you this is one of my favorite things that we do, which is when you become a member here at ALV, you have access to our entire slate of coaches, and you get that in ALV Connect as well. You can always talk to coaches. We're active in there. But let's say you're coaching with me. Let's say you're coaching with me, and we start talking about people pleasing, and we get to a point of we're talking about burnout and stress. I may say to you, hey, next month, let's do your session with a coach who's got some real specialty in burnout and stress. Doesn't cost any extra. We just switch out one of your sessions. I love this because this gives you access to so much level of expertise and resource because everybody here is Team You. Something else that you get every single month, we have about 8 group coaching sessions. This is in addition to your one-on-ones with a coach. And these are on various different topics across everything we coach on. So again, that's career, leadership, life, health, and wellness. And these are run by all the coaches across the board. Also gives you the opportunity to have access to a coach who might not take celebrity sessions, who might not coach very often anymore. Very often, our chief coaching officer, Form Sheath, will lead one of these group coaching sessions, and she doesn't take clients anymore. And they could be done by sometimes there's a special topic, so maybe there's something you're interested in. That also comes with your membership, which is amazing. Lastly, you have instant access to our proprietary program suite, thought questionnaires, assessments, videos, mini courses, things that help bolster your growth in terms of coaching that you'll want to be involved in. Again, I think I mentioned this. This is over $1,000 in value over and above what a coaching program is. For your coaching investment, all of our things start at $379 a month. That's $379 a month for 2 coaching sessions a month, 45 minutes privately with your coach. Plus, because you're here, you get your first session free. So when you meet with a relationship strategist, just say to them, hey, I was on Shari's people pleasing webinar, and you automatically just get your first session on us for having participated in this webinar. Any courses that you sign up for individually as well right now through the end of this month is 25% off. So that's also a really great way to have a little savings while you're moving forward in your career development journey. Actually, what I want to do is I'm going to throw in the chat in case you wanted to sign up for any one of those individual coaches. Here's the link for that. So feel free. And now here on this last slide, you're seeing a QR code. Feel free to take a picture of it. Like I said, you are going to get this tomorrow. Or you could use this link that I just threw in the chat, which will get you to setting up an appointment with one of our relationship strategists to have a conversation about what coach would you match best with? What are the things that are standing in your way now from moving forward in your career development? Today we just covered one, right? We covered people pleasing, but there's others things that you may be facing in your career development or your career transition that you want to work with somebody on. Is it burnout? Is it stress? Is it I need something more fulfilling? Is it I need to find my leadership voice? There's so many different pieces and parts when you're developing your career. This is a great way to find out. So you meet with a relationship specialist, you do a 30-minute consult call, and then they match you with a coach. And we have incredible coaches on staff, and then together you customize a program for how do you move through this next. And there's so much resource available for you in this space. Any questions? I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all now while we do this. Does anybody have any questions about this that they would like to ask or talk about? Anything we talked about today? Anything about coaching in general? Oh, this is my quietest group ever. Anybody? Nothing? You sure you have 10 minutes left of my time? So does anybody have any questions? You could throw them in the chat. You can come off mute. My email, as a matter of fact, let me drop this in the chat for you because I didn't put it up on a slide. If you want to reach out with any questions, this is my email. Would be if I spelled it right. Just put that in the chat for you. Please feel free to reach out. I'm actually on the other side of that email that doesn't go into a place where nobody answers it. It comes directly to me and I answer my emails. Give me a couple of days. Anne says, my first shift in people pleasing was to think about the future Anne and pleasing them. That's awesome. That's awesome, Anne. What does she look like? What does the new Anne look like for you? And anybody else, last questions while you're thinking about what's that first piece that you can make moving forward, signing up for, if I could allay any apprehensions you have about signing up to do a primer to see if coaching is something that will help you move forward. Okay. Tomorrow, I believe tomorrow or the next day, you'll get a copy of this recording. And that way you will be able to look back on it. Like I said, feel free to reach out, use the QR code, get in touch with our RS team. Oh, Anne saying her future Anne says she's helping people by leveraging her expertise and experience and not through building not through being a butler. Sorry. That's awesome. I'm wishing you all well and a happy afternoon. And I hope you start moving away from people pleasing so that you can have impact in your workplace. Happy day. Talk to you all soon. Bye.